What's good? Welcome back to the channel and I hope you're all keeping well. In today's video, I'm keen to show you some new paintings I'm working on and share my sketch progression from daily practice. At the moment, I'm framing the painting featured in my last video, just using some blue tack to hold it together, which actually worked surprisingly well. I thrifted this frame and it turns out to be the perfect size for this painting. I was hoping for something a bit more ornate, but this one looks amazing on my wall, especially for a thrift find. You can see my last video if you want to know more about this painting, but for now let's start something new. All my paintings really start out the same way, by applying 3 to 4 layers of gesso to create a smoother canvas, then giving it a light sand for an even base. Something so satisfying about preparing a new canvas, it even feels a little ritualistic. Then I can add a light wash of burnt sienna mixed with turpentine before making a start on any painting. This base layer reflects through the top layers of paint, creating greater depth and values in color. And I ordered some new brushes from Amazon, so I'm pretty keen to try them here. So I had this idea for a painting combining both subtle emotion and iconic symbolism. Right now I'm outlining the rough sketch, depicting hands reaching out above to the Sacred Heart. The outline is a mix of burnt umber and ultramarine blue, thinned with some terps, allowing the paint to apply easily to the canvas. This first layer will be considered a basic underpainting, just capturing basic details of light and shadow, and this will simply serve as a guide for the top layers to come. This painting has a fair amount of symbolic meaning, from the hands to the Sacred Heart. With a short explanation, it represents the struggle to find love and acceptance, whether that be for oneself or from someone else. The Sacred Heart usually represents Christ's love for all of humanity, but removing all religious connotations, I've decided to include it in this painting to stand for one's own heart, embodying self-love, inner compassion, and emotional fulfillment. The hands reaching out reflect the very human journey to understand and embrace personal worth and overcome insecurities, even for creating meaningful relationships with others. It shows the same journey that everyone has to experience, the journey for self-acceptance and the ongoing effort to find a meaningful, loving relationship with yourself or with another. It is a pretty personal painting, but I think most of us can relate to it in different ways, so interpret it as you will. This is simply my inner workings that inspired the idea. The Sacred Heart is an interesting symbol. Recently I'm seeing it around a lot more often, and I do wonder if the people who bear this symbol know of its origins. Not that you need to, I mean it's a pretty cool symbol regardless. I'm seeing it on clothes and jewelry, it even makes for a pretty timeless tattoo. And it does just make me wonder if others just think it's cool like I do, or if they're all secretly devout Catholics. You never know, it just makes you question. Or maybe I'm secretly religious and I just don't know. No one ever told me. But for real, the outline is coming together well. Since the paint is so thin, I'm able to create some depth and place the shadows or darker points where they will be before adding thicker layers. Right now I'm adding in some shadows around the heart, getting some veins popping, just putting all the details in. And the hands look great proportionally. I'm pretty happy with those. I already have a fair idea with how I'm going to paint them, and hopefully it gives you a fair idea with how they're going to look when the painting's finished, or when I progress further anyway. The heart is wrapped in the crown of thorns, and there's a little gash on the left side where I'll be adding dripping blood detail in later layers. Usually the Sacred Heart is shown with a flame, but I'm not going with that for this piece. Now I'm using the rest of the paint mix to darken the background a little. Not completely darker, I do want it to be a little lighter towards the center, especially around the heart. I'm not really sure what I want to do on the background just yet, but I'm tossing a few ideas around and we'll see what just works best, or what I feel like is needed here. This is a really good starting point, and I feel pretty confident that this will come together really well. Now I'm just wiping off the excess paint, and then I'll let it sit while I think about what I want to do with the background. Here's the sketch I did in the last video, and it's okay. Since then, I've been drawing every day, focusing on features, figures, and anatomy, just trying to learn how to get my proportions right. Some are really fast drawings, some are longer, anywhere between 2 and 10 minutes. That's really what I'm working with at the moment, and I'm not really trying to create great drawings, more than I am trying to improve my ability to draw. Gonna do another Renaissance sketch from the Uffizi book. I did this one in the last video, and this time I'm gonna let the fates decide which one I'll do, see if I can test myself and my abilities with all the effort I've been putting into drawing. And we land on this 1500 sketch by Agnolio Bronzino. First thing I notice is there's grid lines behind this sketch, which will make things a bit easier. So I can copy the grid lines exactly how they are in the book and just sketch them into mine. Never really used grid lines before, but I can understand why and how they're practical. It's definitely gonna make this sketch a lot easier. Feels like I've hit the down, right, left R1 cheat code. I always feel a little nervous when I'm doing a Renaissance drawing reference, and I think it's because I want to get it, as close as possible as I can. When you're staring at one, it just really screams perfection. Half the time, I don't know if I can pull off something as good as that, or as even similar looking to what I'm referencing, but I feel I do pretty well, fairly decent anyway. Most references I'm using right now are just straight from Google image search. I think it's been really beneficial to me to break down the features, things like focusing on the hand and then a whole arm and then focusing on the feet, being able to focus on the little details of what makes up these features and bringing it all together into a full body pose really makes things less complicated. I think at this part of the drawing, the only thing I wasn't really stoked with was the face, something that a lot of us put pressure on ourselves to get right. Only takes one feature to be just out of place. It'll go from Renaissance to caveman real quick. Thankfully, this drawing only has one side of the face shown. Overall, I am pretty happy with how the outline looks and how it's come together. Now I can start working on the shading. I'd say that's my weakest point at the moment when sketching, is shading with a pencil. Just always seems a little bit more complicated than it really is, and it's definitely the next thing that I'm working and focusing on to improve. Some artists are insane creating realistic portraits with lead or charcoal or even pen. I don't think I'm aiming to get that good, but at least to improve my current technique is more than enough for me. It's really not looking too bad at this point, mostly happy with it, and I think it took me about an hour and a half to finish this sketch, shading included. It does feel a little slow, but speed comes with time, and it was super fun to practice, so here's how it looks. Here's one I've been working on of St. Catherine of Siena, and I've been working on this for a minute now. A replica painting or a study, whatever you want to call it, and it's almost done, just a few final adjustments to make. The original painting has a blue background, but I really wasn't feeling that, so I decided to make it a gray gradient color, where it's lighter in the center, darker on the outside. I'm painting this using the chiaroscuro method. This refers to light and dark. The method is to paint in a single tone, being black and white, essentially making a black and white painting before glazing over the top with color. Many Renaissance artists use this method, such as Caravaggio, Da Vinci, Vermeer, Goya, Giosa, all the great ones. And it's my first time actually doing a glaze or attempting a glaze. I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, and I'm a little worried because I've put so much time and effort into the underpainting. If I mess it up with the glaze, then it's gonna hurt. I'll only be glazing the crown and the face, so hopefully it works out for the best. St. Catherine has a really symbolic story. It is said that she disappointed her mother by cutting off her hair as a bit of a protest to go against the encouragement to improve her appearance, to look more womanly, I suppose, in order to find a husband or attract a husband. But she don't need no man, and she wears a crown of thorns because she had a vision. It was your boy Christ asking her to choose between a golden crown or the crown of thorns, and the golden crown offered her riches while she was alive on earth. The crown of thorns offered her glory in heaven, so she chose the crown of thorns. And honestly, it just looks cooler anyway, right? I mean, that's what I would choose. I guess it depends on how much money they're offering, because the cost of living right now, Damn. So if you haven't heard of glazing, it's a technique where you thin the oil paint out with, generally it's linseed oil, or at least that's what I'm using here. And then you paint almost translucent see-through layers, just very thin layers of oil paint, generally color, but it can also be used for light and dark on the top layers of paintings as well. After that first layer of glaze, I was almost convinced I had messed it up. Onto this second layer, I can add a little bit more depth to the shadows, adding a little more color to the skin tone and the lips, and the same with the crown. I guess being my first time doing this whole process, I wasn't sure what to expect, but as I'm doing this, I can see the definition slowly starting to appear. I can see the painting just quickly coming together with each layer, with each stroke, and just softly blending it all together. Through doing my own research on how to learn this technique and put it into practice, I don't think there's really a maximum limit of how many times you can glaze a painting. You can do anywhere between 1 or 2 up to 10 glazes, like as many as you want really, until you get the values exactly where they need to be, colors where they need to be, the shadows, whatever really that you're using it for. I'm up to the 3rd glaze now, and it's looking pretty good from what I can see. I really like the depth of the shadows and where they're placed and how dark they are. After the 2nd glaze, I noticed that the skin was looking a bit yellow and pale, so I decided to make it a bit warmer. I hope that reflects through the video, and I quite like how the crown has come together nicely as well. This will likely be the final layer I do for the glazing. I guess I'll just wait for it to completely dry before I decide if I want to do another layer over the skin, but we are definitely done for now. And I hope this video was okay. I didn't really feel like being in this one or showing myself anyway, but it was really fun to make and give you guys a bit more insight to my process and how I'm doing things right now. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.